Alabama's got a Nick back on the staff, but it's not the one you want.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by Gametime, and thank you for making this your first listen every single day. Jimmy, I probably sounded a little too depressed right there at the very beginning.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nick Sheridan is Alabama's new offensive coordinator. He was the tight ends coach. It feels like the easy path.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it's not the right path.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like the easier way to go. There are some already out there predicting, this is the beginning of the end, another sign of a missing brick, in the castle. Is that even a thing? Missing brick in the castle?
Well, if you're missing a brick in the castle, that's bad. I'm sure it's bad. I think you can miss one.
Depends on where it is.
Depending on how big. It depends on how big the castle is. You don't want it to be that like brick, the little small, on the Death Star in Star Wars, about how it was the size of a planet, but there was this one little 3-foot area that if you blew that area up, the whole thing would blow up.
Boy, so, Family Guy did a great take on that.
I think I remember it. I think that's kind of where I'm getting the joke from.
He's like, we could get it repaired easily. He's like, maybe it costs about $1,000 or something. He said, let's get some estimates before we repair it.
Anyway, like, let's put a piece of wood over it. Just put a piece of wood over it, and they're like, let's get some.
We'll get estimates. So, all right. So, what do you think of the hire, though, Jimmy?
Two things. Number one, I will admit, I don't like using the word lazy at all. I think anybody that says lazy just doesn't understand Kalen DeBoer's the. First of all, Nick Sheridan isn't a tight end coach. He's been a quarterback coach and offensive coordinator most of his career. In fact, a lot of Alabama fans were infatuated with Kirby Moore from Missouri, and I get it. And I think Kirby Moore is a good coach too. But Kirby Moore had coached quarterbacks and been an offensive coordinator 2 years of his whole life. Nick Sheridan has played quarterback or coached quarterback 12 years of his life, and they're like the same age. So Nick Sheridan has a lot more experience in terms of playing and coaching the quarterback spot, and is really a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator type more than he's a tight ends coach. Freddie Kitchens, for instance, is coaching tight ends at North Carolina. But I think we all know he's really a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator at heart. That's what he is, and that's what he's more than qualified to do. He did it at the NFL level. So now, I'm not moved by this. I'll be honest. I mean, I was hoping for more of a splashy hire, like, hey, let's make a splash. Hey, while people think Alabama's down, let's go get some $2 million coordinator from somewhere else or from the NFL. I would have been excited about that, but that doesn't mean that I don't think Nick Sheridan can do this job well. I think people that are super down on this just don't realize how a big a part Kalen DeBoer is of this offense, and that Kalen DeBoer literally called plays last year at Washington. Not the whole game through, but Kalen DeBoer is known to have, I think the word is that on 3rd and 4th downs, he felt very strongly about the calls on 3rd and 4th downs and would make them himself, in some situations. So he is extremely hands-on as a play caller, unlike Nick Saban, who was not hands-on as a play caller, even on the defensive side of the field. He let his defensive coordinator just do it, and then Nick would provide guidance, throughout the week and on Sunday mornings and staff meetings. But anyway, the whole point is there's no reason to be super negative or down about this. It's what DeBoer wanted. One more point, because I could probably do the whole show on this. One more point, Luke. If Ryan Grubb had stayed at Washington and not ever come to Tuscaloosa because he was going to be the head coach at Washington, it's my understanding that Nick Sheridan would have been the day one OC in Alabama if Ryan Grubb hadn't made him stay or tried to talk him into staying to be the OC at Washington. So that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, you know, some guy who just wasn't cut out to do this. I mean, and again, I think what confuses people is he initially came to be the tight end coach, and that just turns people off. But again, I mean, Freddie Kitch is a tight end coach. Tommy Reese is going to coach tight ends for the Cleveland Browns, but we all know he's been a quarterback guy and an OC his whole career up until now. It's just sometimes you hit a point in your career where you have to do something else briefly until another opportunity pops up. So I'm not down on it, but I admit that I'm not fired up. It's an in-house promotions are sort of boring to people. It's kind of boring in the sense it's because, you know, I had delusions of grandeur by, you know, because I like guys like Josh McDaniels, who's an NFL head coach last season. You know, those kind of names excite me because it's big and sexy and big, you know, it's headlines. And obviously Josh has had a heck of a career, you know, 6 Super Bowls. So that was just super unrealistic from the start. But yeah, would I have been excited about Josh McDaniels? Sure. Excited about Nick Sheridan? No. But anyone that says, oh gosh, this is a disaster, I can't wait. I've saved a few posts on BOL the other day, yesterday, because I saved a few because what I think is going to be really funny, not predicting this happens, but it could. How about 3 years from now when Seattle Seahawks fire Ryan Grubb and they're trying to hire Nick Sheridan away from Alabama? Then what does the reaction yesterday look like? So I saved a few posts.
You know, it's funny. A lot of the people saying, boy, an in-house hire is so lazy, so uncreative. A month, 5 weeks ago, they were probably like, if we don't hire Travaris Robinson, we are out of our minds.
Exactly. What a great point. What a great point.
But now, again, I'm not going to lie. It doesn't move the meter. I didn't know Nick Sheridan from Adam's House Cat a week ago when he was on the staff. So I don't think anybody did because nobody's going to sit around and talk a lot about the tight ends coach. That's more Bama than you or I even get into. So it's not a sexy position and it's not a sexy hire, but it doesn't mean it won't work. And I don't think it means that nobody else wanted the gig. Look, if anything, I'm kind of okay. This is Kalen DeBoer's thing. He again made his own decision. Let's see how it goes. Let's give him a chance before we call it a failure. We don't know. At the same time, to just blanketly say this is fantastic, keep it all in house and keep everything rah rah rah. That's not really fair either. I think this is. You hate to be so cliche about it, but this is a wait and see type of situation. There's, you know, this guy may be a home run, and it may just be completely lackluster. So
I mean, let's see. I mean, that's the thing about me. I mean, let's see. I mean, I got to see.
Hired DeBoer to do these things, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And if you can't trust him to do this, what in the world are you trusting him for? Yeah, I mean, this is exactly why you hire the head coach. It's for this. And again, you either trust him or you don't. And for all like, well, I don't trust him. Okay, fine. Then don't. And I'm not sure what you do when you don't trust the head coach. Then don't. But Greg Byrne does. You know, and I'm gonna trust him until the results on the field are bad or not good enough. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt until one way or the other. And I'm still excited about Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a great football coach. I do, based on what he's done in his career to date. So I think, you know, we should, as fans, trust his hires. Nick Saban, I mean, he's the best to ever do it. He didn't get it right all the time either, by the way. I think we'd all agree or admit that some of Nick Saban's hires weren't, you know, in retrospect, weren't very good. He had to make changes very quickly. There were a lot of coaches, if you go over the 17 years, Luke, you find a lot of instances of coaches that were at Alabama for 1 year and did not leave for a better situation. It's fair in those instances to say that guy was fired or wasn't welcome back, because it wasn't really Nick Saban's style to walk down to someone's office and sit there and point his finger in their face and say, you're fired. That's kind of not really the way that it worked under Nick Saban. He always tried to take care of his guys, particularly ones that he hired. You know, like, hey, I hired this guy. It didn't work out. But that's my fault. So I'm going to make sure that he lands softly. You know, that was kind of the way Saban handled those things. But I just want to see what the results are before I am too far in either direction with Sheridan about, oh, this is awesome. I'm not saying that. This is terrible. I'm not saying that. I want to see the results.
Your crew over there at Bama Online put out a projected spring depth chart, and there were some interesting things on there, and we're going to talk about it. But I got to tell you about Gametime right now. I'm going to use Gametime this weekend to go to the Texas A&M game. I've got 2 of my kids coming in from Ohio, my wife and my daughter here in Birmingham. We're all going to go to the Texas A&M game, and I've decided I want to use the Gametime app because, you know, I don't want to worry about it. I know how easy the Gametime app is because I've used it a bunch of times. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And right now, all new users get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket with code Vegas100. Now, you should have done that last week because that code probably won't be any good anymore. I'm reading the live read here. I'm just telling you what it says. You could have gotten $100 off. Now they'll have a new promotion. I'll get that to you ASAP when they update this thing, but they hadn't updated. But I will tell you, Gametime's still awesome. What are some of the things that you want out of an app? Well, you want last-minute tickets or flash deals or zone deals. You can get all that with Gametime. You can see where your seat is. That is so crucial. All-in prices show your total up front so you know what you're getting, and you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds. I mean, with 2 taps. Love that. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of any event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute tickets. So terms apply, but just download the Gametime app, and you will absolutely love this thing. I'm going to give you a code next time I do a live read for them. You can also use code Locked On for $20 off anything else. So they'll have another bigger code later, but right now you can use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Okay, so the depth charts.
Yes.
Kind of interessante. And I also thought it was very cool. This came from Clint Lamb. I thought it was very cool. We'll start at quarterback because I think this one jumped off the page at me.
Yeah, it got some attention on the message board.
He said starter, Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson. Okay. Whoa.
A little bit.
Interesting. Then he said third team quarterback, Dylan Lonergan. And then a new category I would consider, at least new, developmental QB is Austin Mack. Okay. He says, don't get hung up on these projections right now. But how do you not get hung up on the fact that Jalen Milroe, who was, one of the better quarterbacks in the country, whether you agree with that or not, I mean, I think the consensus is he was one of the better quarterbacks in the country. He might be supplanted by Ty Simpson, according to Clint Lamb. Is he stirring the pot, or do you think he really believes this?
I think he really believes it because it's not his personality to stir the pot. It is his personality to say, hey, this is my opinion, and then it is what it is. And if you don't like it, then you don't like it. But you know, they want my opinion around here, and this is what it is. So I get what Clint's saying perfectly. I would phrase it all differently myself, but Clint's pretty smart about this sort of stuff. And I think what he's saying here is everyone is starting from square one because no one knows the new offense. Everyone is starting from square one. Ty is a different quarterback now than he was when he first competed with Milroe for the starting job. Ty's a better, more mature. Because Ty's been around this stuff his whole life. Dad was a coach. It's not crazy to think that Ty may pick up things faster than Milroe, just simply because Ty's dad is a head college football coach and has been around it since he was just a little tiny kid. His dad was a quarterback at Southern Miss. So I think this is Clint saying, hey, Ty may pick this up quicker or better than Milroe in terms of it being a new offense, and he's a better quarterback than he was a year ago. Those things make perfect logical sense to me. So I get Clint's opinion entirely. My opinion would be a little different in the sense that I'm just not going to underestimate Jalen anymore. I'm going to now, my default is going to be Jalen's going to be better than everyone thinks. That's my default because he's proven that again and again and again. So I'd be a little more adamant that Milroe is QB1. So that's where in my mind, Milroe's QB1 and Ty's QB2. Now, where I will veer towards Clint's opinion is this. Last year, Milroe didn't play well against Texas and was benched. That's the only other way to put it. He was benched after Texas for not playing well, and they looked at other guys. Well, for Milroe, thankfully for Milroe, Simpson and Buckner were not ready to be starters in game 3 last season. They weren't ready. So he had to go back to Milroe, who then improved and was then pretty great the rest of the year. This season, if Milroe falters again, if there's a falter and he needs to go to the bench again, I will say he probably won't get back on the field because I think Ty and Dylan and Austin Mack, I think they're too good. I think Ty's definitely ready. I think Dylan's possibly ready. I think Mack is possibly ready, but I think Ty is. And if Milroe has to go to the bench this year, I'm not sure he gets back on the field. So that's where I veer back towards what, in Clint's corner. But in my mind, if I was doing a depth chart today, I would phrase it Milroe's QB1 and Ty's QB2.
Boy, that is that's going to be so interesting to watch. I mean, that is just wow. Yeah, I mean, it's Alabama fans will get it. I don't think many other fans will understand. But he may have a short leash, and I don't know if that's right or wrong. He might. And it's going to be interesting because there are going to be some folks out there who are like, hey, I saw Ty Simpson last year and he didn't really move the meter very much for me. In fact, he's probably most well known for dropping the football on the 1 yard line on a 70-something yard run, which I think was the longest run of the year for Alabama.
Might have been. And what's so infuriating about that is that was a terrible, terrible mental mistake, and the kind of mistake you wouldn't think a Ty Simpson would make. It spoiled an otherwise great play and pretty much a great performance for Ty that day. I think it was the Kentucky-Chattanooga stretch, which proved to me, maybe not to everyone else that's listening to the show, or because everyone's free to have their own takes, of course. But myself, I became sold that Ty Simpson is ready to be a starting quarterback in the SEC based on how he looked against Kentucky and Chattanooga. Now, you can say, well, how can you say that? It's just Kentucky and Chattanooga. Well, understand what I said. I said he's ready to be a starting quarterback. I didn't say he was ready to be the best quarterback in the United States or he's ready to go to Athens, Georgia and beat the crap out of Georgia with his bare hands. I didn't say any of that. I just said he's ready to be a starting quarterback in the SEC. And then the chips fall where they fall. But I saw a kid that was ready in games 10 and 11 that was not ready in game 3. And that's how all of this works. Kids are ready when they're ready.
Yeah, that is very true. And Jimmy, we're going to get into the running backs and wide receivers here next. Of course, I want to tell you about FanDuel, though. You know, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's awesome. That's $150 if your bet wins. That's just like free money. It's like, here, we don't want money. We want you to have it. Bet on all your favorite NBA players with teams with quick bets or live same-game parlays or exclusive props. And those exclusive props are always so cool. Like, will so-and-so get over 7.5 rebounds or 3.5 assists or 1.5 blocks. Those are so much fun. And you can do so much more with FanDuel.com/lockedon. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is an official partner of the NBA. Okay, so now probably the second most interesting. I don't even know that we'll be able to squeeze this and wide receivers at the same time. Although, I want to get to wide receivers because everybody knows my affinity for Ryan Williams. But starter, and I think
you're always picking the underdog. You're always picking the underdog.
So starter at running back, he's listed Jam Miller or Justice Haynes. I'm going to tell you, I think it's funny, like he probably caused the most – he got more clicks by saying Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson. I think he would have gotten more clicks if he had picked Jam Miller or Justice Haynes instead of doing the or thing here. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's Justice Haynes. That's me. I'm going with the unknown, relative unknown. I just think I just am that fired up about it. I love Jam Miller. Doesn't mean I don't like Jam Miller. But and then he's got Richard Young as the rotational running back, and the depth guys is Daniel Hill or Kevin Riley. It's so funny. When I looked at this, when I think about Alabama's running back room, I'm like, yeah, we just got so many dudes who don't know what to do. And then I'm like, oh, we only have 5, and 2 of them are true freshmen, and one of them really didn't play at all last year, and another one barely played.
It is one position where you can get thin in a hurry. You might think, hey, we're in good shape, but boy, running back. And why is it always, I guess it's just fatalistic. Fans can be fatalistic. Why does it always seem like when you get an injury or two, they're always at the same position? It's not like you spread it out like, well, we got one running back hurt, we got an outside linebacker hurt, we got a safety hurt. No, it seems like if you got 3 guys hurt, they're all going to be at one spot. I guess
it does make some sense though, right? Because if your normal guy gets hurt and the other guy comes in and he's not used to playing as much, he may not know the intricacies and have the intuitiveness. It makes a little bit of sense, but it also seems like a horrible set of coincidences when it happens.
I think 5 running backs is good depth and plenty, but 2 of them are true freshmen, meaning that, hey, you get 2 turned ankles, your true freshmen need to grow up in a hurry. Now, that's one position where I think younger guys can get on the field a little quicker than others because it's not as cerebral in terms of there is more to it than people know, but it's not as complicated as picking up blitzes like for interior offensive linemen who have to switch off and double and shift. And hey, everybody, we're blocking left here. Hey, everybody, we're blocking right. It's complicated, but running backs less so. So I do think true freshmen can play there. Hey, look, in terms of Jam or Justice, number one, Luke, I'm used to one way under Saban, and that really paints how I look at substitutions and the way it works. But this is my guess. It would have been my guess if the Saban staff stayed. And, of course, we do have the same running back coach, and so that's going to have some influence. But I think Jam will be the starter. But I also think at the end of every game, when you count up the touches, I think it's going to be roughly identical. That's why I'm cool with Clint's Jam or Justice there, because I think at the end of every game, that Jam will have about 15, 16, 17 touches, and Justice will have 15, 16, 17 touches, and Richard Young will have a small handful. That's just kind of how I see it happening. And that way you keep both Jam and Justice fresh. If I had to pick one, now where I agree with you, Luke, definitely, if I had to pick one, like, hey, okay, you can only have one of those guys. We're trading one. We're trading one to Ole Miss. We're trading one. I hope we trade Jam. I don't want to lose Justice. So I don't want to lose him. As I said on yesterday's show, Justice is going to be a fan favorite in terms of his interviews. He is so good with that, and he's going to hit those out of the park. So Justice, who I don't want to lose, but Jam's a really, really good football player. And I bet 1 year from now, we're probably talking about Jam headed to the NFL draft as a highly drafted running back. Now, we know what that means. I just read yesterday from Matt Miller, NFL expert, draft expert, saying this is an outstanding running back class that's entering in this year's draft, and none of them will go in the top 50. But it is a really good group.
I can't wait to hear Justice Haynes get up there, Justice Haynes, future Ohio State Buckeye, get up there and say and be completely profound and eloquent. No, I'm teasing. Hopefully Justice Haynes is a dyed-in-the-wool Bammer, and he stays here, but you don't know anymore. I'm going off on a tangent a bit here, but I'm getting more and more scared to put my arms around anybody.
Yeah,
because they'll leave. I mean, look, it's one thing that every girl I've ever dated did it. I got used to that. This is the University of Alabama. I mean, I've been loving it forever. I mean,
we won't spend a lot of time on it because it just makes me angry and scares the heck out of me. But that court case going on in Eastern Tennessee in federal court, the outcome of that case, the outcome of this case could be that it is perfectly allowable and legal for head coaches to crawl into the DMs of players playing for other schools and saying, I've got $1 million waiting for you if you transfer. And that can be the outcome of this legal case that's being heard in Eastern Tennessee. And for all the cynics out there right now that say, dummy, that's happening right now. No, it's not. There is tampering that goes on. Everyone does it, but it's back channels. It's quiet. Not everyone does it. Not everyone does it. Coaches don't get hands-on involved in a lot of those cases. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen to some degree, but it doesn't happen like the cynics tell you it happens. But now it will. Now it will. Now it will be Hugh Freeze and Ryan Day in the DMs of our players who are playing for Alabama. And that is truly the Wild West.
And vice versa. Hopefully. If everybody else is doing it, we better do it.
You know what's kind of funny about when they say the Wild Wild West? You know, in a lot of towns back then in the Wild Wild West, you had to, when you pulled into town, you had to take your gun and bring it to the sheriff's office. You couldn't just walk around with a gun in town. And you couldn't some. But no, I'm serious. Just Google that. And again, I'm not talking about all towns, and I'm sure some history expert's going to tell me you're wrong. But no, there were some towns in which you just couldn't. You had to turn in your gun when you reached town to the sheriff's office. So I'm just saying the Wild Wild West. I think that's a good analogy for what we got now. We do have some chaos now. We do have some tampering now, but it is not no holds barred, no rules. That's not true. That's just not true. You may think it's true. That's not true.
Yeah. Apropos of nothing, I get my haircut in Alex City at a place at Cricket's place. It's called Cricket's Cuts. It's a girl named Cricket, and she just has her own place. It's fine, great. Go see Cricket. Tell her Luke sent you. But when I go there, because she generally has an older clientele, she has old Westerns on all the time. So every time I get my haircut, I get to see a new episode of Rawhide, which I've never seen. And so I think you're right about that, because I think I actually saw one time where they had to go and check the gun in. Clint Eastwood's in it. It's Jed Clampett was in the one I went to yesterday. It was bananas. I do want to end with one other thing. I won't even say who said this because I'm not offended in the least. This is both offending me, apparently, and complimenting you. One of our listeners said, I really wish Locked On Bama could find a new host. Luke's attempts to be funny and tell stories is awkward. His natural frown and worried face is unwatchable at times. Jesus. He's very opinionated, and it doesn't
He's
work.
Very opinionated on this opinion show.
Jimmy is great and very informative and quick to the point. Just my 2 cents.
Well, I appreciate that my mom sends us. I didn't know my mom watched the show.
And I was like, I had to respond. I did respond to him later. And this is from a podcast today. I said, I do have a natural frown. I'm not a big fan of it. I have a worried face, but for sure. I have 4 children, one in college, one going to college, one about to get braces, one I just bought another car for, and I've dealt with depression all my life. So yes, my face looks like it's been rode hard and put up wet. So I'm very apologetic about that.
Your attempts to be funny right now are home run. I'm laughing.
I mean, I was like, it's funny the way some people comment here. There's one guy that comments, and he's pretty negative towards us every time. I've actually just started ignoring him. You can't, please everybody. But I'm like, we love doing this, and we appreciate everybody watching. Mm-hmm. But we're not making you watch. This is not a Clockwork Orange. You know, you're sitting there with your eyes glued open. We're like, hey, you don't like Luke. You don't.
No one's going to be.
Everybody likes Jimmy.
No, no. Oh, so not true. So I get my comments and my hate mail usually on the message board. Actually, well, I mean, the thing is, when someone says Luke's two opinion, look, when your job, literally your job, and our job here, Locked On Bama, is to tell you what we think about what's going on. So our job is to give you opinions, not the news. We're not a breaking news show. We're not a, hey, sources close to the program. That's just not what we do here. But we do give our opinions. And when you give opinions all day long, people are going to disagree. Of course they will. I'm a big fan of, like, just to say, I mean, I don't know. I'm a big fan of Kirk Herbstreit. I think Kirk is as good as it gets in terms of a national college football analyst. Do I agree with every opinion Kirk Herbstreit has? Absolutely not. There are some opinions that Kirk has, and I'm like, whoa, Kirk, not sure I agree with that. That doesn't mean I don't respect the heck out of what he does. And the fact that it's just hard to give your opinion every day about everything, because every time you do, when I say that Jalen Milroe is going to be the starting quarterback, I'm sure some of you out there listening go, he's wrong. He's wrong about that. And that's fine. That's fine that you have a different opinion. I just hope that you listen to the show every day and are entertained by it. You're not going to agree with everything Luke and I say and every opinion we have. There's no way that you will. And we don't want you to, because we don't expect you to agree.
If you did, why would you even listen to us unless it was just you were so down on yourself, you just needed affirmation? Yeah,
just scream into an echo chamber if all you want to hear is your own opinions.
But my dream is half our audience keeps listening to us and they keep going, you know, like Donald Trump, wrong. But they're like, I'm gonna tell you, I listen to a show out of Auburn about every day because I think they're so wrong so often, and it's generally all about Auburn, that I'm like, I just like listening to them and thinking how wrong they are. And I was like, joke's on me. I'm helping them. I'm not getting anything out of this.
Because you're listening to the show. You're bumping those Arbitron ratings.
Yeah, that's right.
But we appreciate everybody. We appreciate everybody that listens, whether you have a good, bad, or indifferent opinion, and hope that you are entertained, even if your idea of entertainment is laughing at how wrong we are.
I'm going to tell you that, boy, he really got me with his natural frown and worried face.
Your resting B-word face.
I was like, you should, if you were me for a day, you would have a worried face too. I've got kids all over the country. I'm like Sean Kemp without the money. So anyway, all right. That's going to do it for today's.
I'm just worried about Nick Sheridan.
We will talk tomorrow. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.